Okay, welcome back to the WordPress login page customization series. And this is part 2. In the part 1, we took care of the custom CSS setup and the styling. We took care of as much as styling as we could. Now, in this video, we're going to cover the logo setup, the URL, the registration text changes, this text change, and the registration link also. And in the end, we're going to also go to this, my password reset page, and get rid of this extra stuff, make it look like lean and thin like this. So let's get started. Okay, so we are back at the project code, and at this point we're going to take care of the logo replacement. For that, we're going to have to add an action, and here we're going to use a hook called login on queue script. Okay, so now let's attach a function, most login logo. Now let's write the function. Okay, so we have our function shell written, but at this point something very interesting happens. We have to close down our PHP and open next. Right in between, we're going to write up actual CSS. So let's have a tag called style. In here, we're going to write the actual CSS to target login. So it's the header and the URL, which is basically this area right here. Now let's give it a background image and URL. Here we're going to bring in our logo image from the WordPress backend. Let's go there. Okay, so here this would be our background logo image. So let's copy this link. Let's go back and paste it right here. We already know we're at the functions file, so let's get rid of it, give it some space, and let's get rid of this part. Now normally when you are doing it on a live site, you can't get rid of this much, because this is just, I'm having to add this because I'm doing it locally using MAMP for Windows. So I just need this extra part for the login image to properly show up. But on a live site, on a real project, you need only this much. All right, so now let's give it some size, height, 60px, width, 323px. Now keep in mind, this stuff I actually had to find out via trial and error, because this is the perfect shape and size for my login page logo. So you're gonna have to find that out for yourself by doing some trial and error. Okay, now let's give it some background size. Okay, so now let's give it a background repeat, which is no repeat, and a little padding at the bottom, about 30px. Let's save this. Now everything is in place. Our login on queue script is the hook, and our function file right here, and the custom CSS we needed. Let's go back to the project and refresh. Boom, there you go. As far as look and feel goes, we are almost there. But functionality wise, for example, if I click on this logo, it still ends up in the WordPress page, but we want it to do just like this, go to its home page. Now let's go get that done. Okay, so let's take care of the logo URL, add an action. Okay, so this time the hook we're going to use is login header URL, and our function is Moose login logo URL. All right, so now let's write the function. Okay, so that's our function shell, and we're going to add a simple line here. Return home URL. This is a WordPress function which will always get us the homepage URL. Now that it's all said and done, let's save this. Let's go back to the project and let's do a refresh. Okay, and now let's click here, see where it goes, and boom, we are at the homepage. Now that being done, let's take care of this register URL next, because when I click here, this goes here, but in our target site, it actually goes to a custom page. So let's get that done. Okay, so let's take care of this registration URL. For that, this time we're going to have to add a filter, and the hook we're going to use is register URL, and this is going to be our function. So let's write the function. All right, and since this is a filter, it's actually bringing an URL with it, which we're going to filter out. So let's do that. All right, so basically what we're doing here is we're going to provide a permalink, but to get that permalink, we're going to need that essential page ID. And to get that page ID, we have to reach WordPress backend. So let's go there. And here we are, and the page we are looking for is right here. Let's sign up, and we have an ID right here, 778. In case you're wondering how I got this ID, I use this plugin right here, Show ID. It's very helpful. I can look up just right in the corner and see the ID. So in this case, it's 778. So let's go back. All right, so let's add 778. That's the page we're going to. And since this is a filter, it will always need us to return what it gave us, which is the register URL. Save. Now let's go back to the project. Let's refresh it once. And now let's click on this register button, and boom, we are at the sign up page that we just set it up. Now let's change this text to look like that. I mean, in this case, we're not gonna write join, but I'm gonna change it to sign up. Let's do that. Okay, so we're gonna change the register text. Let's add a filter. Okay, so this time we're using this get text hook, and this is going to be our function. So let's write the function. Okay, so this is our function, and this filter gives us all the text from the login page as translated. Basically, this filter is used to translate the login page. So in this case, we're not going to go ahead and translate anything, but we're going to use this to change the registration text. So let's do that. Okay, so here I am using the str replace function, and I'm going to take the register and replace it with the sign up, and then put it back into this translated variable. Once again, since this is a filter, we're going to have to return what it came back with, which is translated. Let's save that. Let's go back and refresh. Look here, boom, there you go. It is now sign up. Let's target this guy right here, lost password. Okay, now this text change will be very similar to the previous one. We're going to use the same filter, get text, and let's write the function. All right, that's our function shell, and this time we're going to have to filter out and get to the exact wording of that sentence, lost your password. So let's write that logic. All right. So basically we're going to go through the text that comes in, and if we find this specific text, only then we're going to replace it with my password. And that being said, it's a filter, so let's return $text. Okay, our function is ready. Let's save this and let's go back to the project. Okay, so now let's keep an eye out here. Let's refresh. Boom. So we got our my password. So now it's almost exactly the same. Now on this page, only thing we have left is the text for our login button. So let's take care of that next. Okay, so now let's take care of the button text. Now this one, I have to say, is going to be a little bit trickier. We're going to have to do it in 2 steps, and we're going to have to use 2 separate hooks. So let's get started. Let's add an action. All right, so initially we have to use this hook login form and attach this function. Let's write this function. Okay, we have our shell, but now in this function we're going to have to add a filter. And this time we're going to get our get text filter back, and this time this filter will bring in 2 parameters. So let's write this function. Okay, so it's gonna bring in translation and text, and this time we're gonna just manipulate the text using a if logic. Basically, if we find this text inside this, then we will filter it by returning whatever we wish it to be. Let's say return, and we want it to be enter, uppercase. And once this is done, now we have to finally return translation. Okay, our function is ready. Let's save this. Now let's go back to the project. Keep an eye out here, refresh, and boom, there you go. Now we have pretty much 100% match of our login pages. Now let's do a little bit of bonus work with this page right here. Let's make them look alike. All right. Okay, so lost password page. So we're going to handle it in 2 different steps. First, we're going to target this label. Next, we're going to take care of this text. All right, so let's go do that. First, let's add a filter. And this time also, we're going to use the same hook, get text. So let's first write the function. All right, so that's our function shell, and as usual it's bringing the translated as a variable. This is where all the texts are, but let's find out first what page we're in and what exact text we're looking for. For that, let's start writing the if logic. Okay, so here first we're checking on whether or not we're on this lost password page, and secondly we are making sure we find this exact same text, which is this one right here inside this translated one, this variable. Once we do, let's just return what we want it to be, which is email. And else we're going to send the translated variable as is without making any changes. So we just saved it. Let's go back and refresh. And there you go. Okay, so we're gonna work on the text message above on that lost password page. But before I do, let me show you something. This is not your usual lost password page. I'm using WooCommerce on this site. So this actually comes from WooCommerce. So in that case, we actually have to use, all right, so this is a hook from WooCommerce lost password message, right? So, and this is our function we're adding it to, so let's write that function. This one's gonna be a simple one. All right, our function shell is created, and this one though, in this one, whatever we return is gonna show up instead of that text, right? So let's return, okay, just to test it out, just to show you, I'm just gonna say any text we want, and keep an eye out here. Let's refresh. Any text we want, we can do anything we need. So let's just finish it out by returning nothing, or just an empty text right there. Save that. Let's go back, refresh, and that's it. We have an exact match. Also, the WordPress login page, 100% match. And that concludes this video series. If you like this, please smash the like button, and definitely don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.